There were no lights. We drove large sections of the road in one go, constantly praying that we wouldn't get a flat tire, that the car wouldn't break down, and that we wouldn't get stuck in a field. I don't think we ever prayed as much as we did during those hours on the road. My husband tried to stay as calm as possible and reassure me so that I wouldn't worry.
A sister found out that there would be an evacuation train, and we kind of wanted to get on it, but we were not sure that we would. But this time, with prayers, she managed to organize the transportation, and both our families went. It was amazing that this train had a special carriage for people with disabilities, and we were taken to this carriage, and the train was even delayed until we sat down. They were waiting for us. Before we left, we informed the elders that we had made up our minds, and we were going. The brothers sent us a certain amount of money. They said, "This is to help you." And when we boarded the train, we found out that we had to pay for the train. Although before that, all evacuation trains were free. They told us the amount for the tickets, and it was exactly the same as what the brothers had given us.
We've just been listening to evidence of divine intervention in the Ukraine war in the 2022 annual meeting of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Pennsylvania, apparently. So this, again, unfortunately, is a brazen attempt at exploiting the war in Ukraine that has caused untold bloodshed, misery, suffering. If you're a group like Jehovah's Witnesses, unfortunately, the ends justify the means. There's no boundaries. You get to just use that suffering as leverage to show how brilliant your organization is. That's unfortunately what we're seeing here. And we're being asked to believe that Jehovah arranged for this couple, one of whom is disabled, to be given some money that would pay for the train ticket. My question would be, why just the train ticket? What about when you get off the train? What about your needs for accommodation when you arrive at your destination? What about your need for food? What are you supposed to not eat on the train or when you get off the train? This is the sort of flimsy snake oil salesman-like reasoning that Jehovah's Witnesses are being spoon-fed now. Let's say, for argument's sake, that the train ticket was $40. It's not unimaginable that refugees, Jehovah's Witness refugees fleeing the country, might be handed by their fellow believers $40. That's not, I mean, I'm laughing, it's a serious situation, but my laughter is at the absurdity of the claim. I'm sorry, that is not a convincing or persuasive claim whatsoever. If it gives this dear sweet lady comfort to think that, then fine, I suppose, although I would ask her to consider what it says about people who didn't make it out of Ukraine in one piece, or those who stayed behind and have suffered as a result, some even dying as a result, either who were Jehovah's Witnesses or not Jehovah's Witnesses. What makes her special would be my question. Why does she get to get that money and get that passage out, whereas other people in Ukraine need to suffer, including her own fellow believers? This is the arrogance, as I've said before, of, I guess you could say, Christian belief. I really do recoil whenever I hear people say, oh, well, I prayed for this and this is what the Lord gave me. And I'm stood there thinking, well, why are you so special? Why did you get this blessing, whether it's a cure for your ulcer or whether it's a cure for your swollen ankle or a job offer or some kind of financial kickback? Why do you get that sort of benefit while children are dying and people are suffering? What makes you special? This is the arrogance, not just of Jehovah's Witness belief, but Christian belief. I really do struggle with it. And what especially grates me is the way this organization puts these people on camera who've been through this terrible ordeal, using them for its propaganda and making them recount stories essentially of kindness and goodness that's been extended to them by Satan's wicked system.
It was amazing that this train had a special carriage for people with disabilities. And we were taken to this carriage, and the train was even delayed until we sat down. They were waiting for us.
The train had a special carriage for people with disabilities, and they delayed the train's departure until this lady was seated comfortably and ready for the journey to begin. That's Satan's wicked system. And if you're one of Jehovah's Witnesses, you have to believe that the organizers of this train and the people on board the train that made sure she was comfortable and made sure the train didn't depart until she was comfortable deserve to die at an impending Armageddon.
We drove for 16 hours, and we arrived very late. In Lviv, a group of police approached and took me to the security service of Ukraine. Since I have a Russian passport, I'm essentially like an enemy to them.
I knew that Jehovah was with Dad, that he would protect him, and that most likely he would not be dragged there to prison or something like that. But I was worried that they might simply not let us go further, and we would stay in Ukraine.
I sat and waited. I prayed to Jehovah. And this helped me. Not to focus on my negative thoughts, but to trust Jehovah completely.
They begin to incite me to say such slogans as, "Glory to Ukraine." I answered, I am one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and we take a neutral position in this war. We do not support the Russian side, but I also cannot glorify some other country. And then he told me to curse Putin. I said, well, since I am a believer, I cannot speak swear words, so I cannot say this either. And the policeman said, yes, I know your people. They don't want to defend their homeland. I replied, well, if I were a conscript, I would fight against Ukraine now, since I am Russian. He said, well, then save your family. Go with God, Alexei. He gave me back my documents and wished me a good journey.
This apparently is also evidence of divine intervention in favor of Jehovah's Witnesses during the Ukraine war. And don't get me wrong, I really do sympathize with this dear, sweet-looking family. It must have been a tense situation for them. It is certainly awkward that Alexei was fleeing Ukraine with his family as someone with a Russian passport trying to get out of Ukraine, And I think we can all remember, especially in those early days of the war, there was an issue with Russians who were driving around in cars without wearing uniforms, setting out to destroy Ukrainian infrastructure and generally frustrate Ukraine. And how were the forces in Lviv supposed to know whether this guy Alexei was a threat or not? It seems they were asking fairly common sense questions of him. If you think about it from their perspective, he may say, they began to incite me. That's very interesting language. We're talking about an exchange with the authorities. So it's not a case of the authorities asking him questions and asking him to say certain things that would reassure them that he's not a Russian saboteur or someone acting on behalf of the Russian forces. It has to be something more devious. It has to be something more manipulative. Kind of hypocritical, isn't it, when we're talking about manipulation? For the Ukrainian authorities to be accused of this effectively, when this is an organization that has perfected the art of manipulation. Asking Alexei to say glory to Ukraine or to swear against Putin, I think that's quite a reasonable requirement. And it seems that when he was unable to do that, and he explained why he was unable to do that, it's not like he just said, no, I'm not going to do that, leaving them with no choice but to put him in a cell. He was able to explain why it was that he couldn't say glory to Ukraine or why he couldn't swear against Putin. And the authorities were satisfied with his explanation and let him go on his way. There's absolutely nothing unique about that story. If anything, it shows how reasonable the authorities can be. Let's remember, this is an organization that wants us to believe that the authorities are out to persecute Jehovah's Witnesses at any opportunity. This is Satan's system of things. And Satan is bent on making life as terrible as possible for Jehovah's people. And yet here we have an example of the authorities being reasonable and allowing a Russian Jehovah's Witness with his family to flee Ukraine after he'd explained their predicament. So which is it? It's like the point I tried to make in my song, Good Things, Bad Things, thumbnail here if Tibor is gracious. Unfortunately, just about any outcome will be claimed by Jehovah's Witnesses as evidence that they are the one true religion.
Different brothers and sisters began to visit us straight away, and each time there was someone new, and they always brought some bags or boxes. And for the non-witnesses, it was like a miracle. And they kept asking, "Do you know them? Are these your relatives? No, we have never seen them before. Why are they helping you?" Oh, it was such a good witness.
Feeling forced to move to another country is very difficult. But thanks to Jehovah, I have become convinced that his organization really functions as one body. And I'm very happy to be part of it.
The Brotherhood. These are the people waiting for you with open arms.
We felt that it was Jehovah who personally helped us.
It is really evident that a lot of refugees from Ukraine who come here are alone with their problems. And it is very difficult for them. How much easier it is for us because we have a friendly brotherhood with us. And although we're in a foreign country, we feel at home.
All thanks go to Jehovah.
It's a friendly brotherhood, all right, but it's a friendly brotherhood whose love is entirely conditional on you believing as they believe. I've said it many, many times, but what does it say of an organization that will only look out for its own? That's what I saw firsthand when I visited the Ukraine-Hungary border with the rest of my team, with the 2 vans to pick up Ukrainian refugees. We saw the Jehovah's Witnesses there, stood next to their sign. And we asked them, would you take Catholics? Would you help Catholics to get a bed for the night, to be moved away from this war zone so that they can be somewhere safe and somewhere warm and somewhere where they're protected? And instead of answering us straight and saying, no, we wouldn't, they lied to us. They couldn't tell the truth. Look, I think it's great that Jehovah's Witnesses look out for at least their own. It would be terrible if they did nothing. It would be terrible if the organization, when something like the Ukraine war happens, just folded its arms and left Jehovah's Witnesses in Ukraine to their own devices. That would be appalling. So I think at least some praise is deserved, that they can look out for their own, that they can make sure that their own believers are taken care of. I would frankly rather have seen Jehovah's Witnesses on the border, ready to receive other Jehovah's Witnesses, than no one there waiting for Jehovah's Witnesses to arrive. I just don't see how it's anything extraordinary. I just don't see any conspicuous evidence of divine love, of divine compassion, of genuine care and concern for human life, if it's all about what belief system you're part of and whether you share the same beliefs as the person extending the help. That's nothing to be proud of, but predictably, Jehovah's Witnesses are proud of having that approach, are proud of looking out for their own and not helping everyone, to the point where they've devoted a sizable chunk of their annual meeting program in 2022 to patting themselves on the back over their handling of the Ukraine war.